You've introduced me as leader of the council, but I think I'm standing here before you today as a granddaughter, as a mother, and as a sister. And this might seem a frivolous point to make, but I'm going to start with this. Not long ago, before I came out, I washed my hair, and I was reminded of my Hungarian grandmother. She and her sister always used to have kittens if you walked out of the house with wet hair. And the reason I mention that is you might have thought these are two fussy old women, but they lost their parents, their sister, their brother-in-law, and her two nephews, twin boys, who are 4 years old, in Auschwitz. So that's the personal memory that my family has, that we carry the memory of their murders with us every single day. And that's why we commemorate Holocaust Memorial Day, and I think it's around that systematic ambition to annihilate people because of their faith, their creed, and their background. And as it says around the Holocaust Memorial Day, the theme of this year's day is one day, and what a difference one day can make. My great-grandparents were just systematically hunted down, taken from the tiny little rural village where they lived in Transylvania, and that just shows how the state put so much effort into it. If you haven't seen it yet, I did watch it this week. It's really, really challenging to watch. The Storyville documentary called Final Account, about how these young German people, now they're old, were caught up in that, as often just children, caught up in the Nazi ideology, and they just carried out in quite a banal way these horrendous acts of horror. It's very moving, but I think it just gives you an indication of how these things can come about. And sadly, we should be looking at this and remembering it and thinking this won't ever happen again. But as we know, sadly, in this world today, we've got example in China of the Uyghur Muslims, yet again, just because of their faith, they're again being persecuted and murdered, and this is unacceptable. So this is what's happened in the past and what's possibly happening far away, but also what's going on with our own district and our own communities. I looked at the hate crimes in the county of Gloucestershire and in our district, and sadly they will continue to remain at a high level, which is just really sad to see. It's really important that those things are communicated. Just last week, it's incredible to think at Cam Nursery, which is the cooperative nursery, some racist graffiti was put on their sign. So it's just within the heart of our communities. And I would just like to call out and commend those of you who were protesting yesterday. You've seen the leaflet, I think, about the Light newspaper, which is now entry level using COVID denial, but actually it's spreading anti-Semitic hatred right in the heart of Stroud. But I have to say, it's not just in Stroud. They've been handing this newspaper out in Dursley as well, and possibly towns across the country. So it's with us right in the heart of our community, and I think that's something we have to guard against. So now, speaking as a councillor, as a district councillor, as a town councillor, and many of you have your roles within the community, we all have a role to play. Personally, we can stand up. We can be the light, as the light of the candle was lit on Thursday. All of us can take a stand against what's happening in our communities, remember the past, and also what's happening in the present day, which is just really shocking. We live in a time of hatred, but I think there's still hope when we have people like you turning out on a Sunday afternoon to commemorate in the most solemn way that we possibly can. And I'll just finish with a quotation which I read on Thursday. We had our meeting of the Strategy and Resources Committee. We were passing the budget for the council, but because we couldn't have a commemoration ourselves that evening, we did just say a few words at the beginning of the council, and I'm pleased to say every single councillor there of all the different parties, we marked a minute's silence. And I finished with this one quotation from a Holocaust survivor. Get the paper. Sorry, my hands are shaking. So this is from Ibi Knil, survivor of the Holocaust. You didn't think about yesterday, and tomorrow may not happen. It was only today that you had to cope with, and you got through it as best you could. Thank you.